It's the same. Our birthdays are a day apart this past
Happy
week.
birthday.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Ryan. I like to ask every guest the bottom line of their journey so far. So, what would you say yours is?
To be healthier, man. That I think that would be anybody's goal when they're trying to, lose weight, on their weight loss journey. Uh, to be healthier, to live longer, to have a better life. Because, quality of life at, whatever, if you're 300 pounds, 400 pounds, 500 pounds, quality of life is, and,
Yeah.
you just want to be better. So,
Awesome. Yeah, it's very true. As we both know, being, I was over 6. You were like close to 5, right? So
I was
you're over 5.
five. My heaviest was 575.
That's right. I was thinking of later in your journey. All right, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I like to start in the background because everybody like has a story of when they were growing up, because that's where we develop all our habits, right? Like whether it's
Hmm.
food, whether it's like nasty stuff like chewing nails like I do sometimes, or whatever. Hopefully not picking your nose. Uh, but so as growing up, were you like heavy as long as you can remember? Were you like, skinny and then you got heavier later? What was your story
It
like there?
it's weird, man. If you look at pictures, if I show you pictures of me at like 2 to 3 years old, yeah, I was a little chubby. At 3, 4 years old, I was like slim. Like I guess I was like slimming out. It was really, really strange.
Hmm.
And then once I hit like 5, the weight starts piling on. And as I got older, it just started to get worse. So
Okay.
I don't have any memories of me like being a glutton or like overeating a lot. I think it was the things that I was eating at such a young age. But yeah, I don't have any memory of me like eating so much of, like, let's just say my favorite cookie in the world is Oreos, right?
Hmm.
I don't have like a certain memory of me just like as a kid, like grabbing like 6 to 7 Oreos and like running away, because that's bad. I mean, that's really, really bad for a kid. But
Yeah.
like, I don't remember having, like, I don't remember doing that, you know? I
Yeah.
might have, but I don't remember it.
Hmm.
But yeah, if I showed you like throughout the years, like pictures of certain stages and certain ages, you'd be like, oh wow, it's weird how like in the 3 and 4 age, like you're fine, and then the 5, 6, 7, 8, it gets worse. It's just really
Hmm.
strange.
Yeah, I had I never really knew it when I was a kid. Like I like kind of average for a while, and then like when I was around like 8 or 9 is when I first noticed, because I've told the story before, but went to the Philadelphia Zoo with like a friend's family, like my one buddy's family, and like they
Hmm.
had a picture of all like me and my brother and him and his brother on like this like rhinoceros thing statue in the
Hmm.
Philadelphia Zoo,
Hmm.
and like I just saw myself sitting there. And, when you sit down, you look worse, and like
Yes.
I was not a good dresser then, and so I had like my shirt tucked in and I was wearing like a white shirt, right? And
Yeah.
I just looked huge, and that's like was my first realization. I was like 8. It was like my first realization. Of course it took me way longer than that to finally start to change it,
Yeah.
but yes. So as you get older, you're like progressing in your weight and all that. And when was it that you like first like decided you needed to make like a change? Because like you said, like we kind of mentioned early, like you said you got up to like 575. Like when was
Uh,
that?
so 575, I was, I'll never forget where I was. I was at a Weight Watchers meeting. I was with my ex-wife and my mom, um, and I agreed to go to Weight Watchers. I didn't want to. I didn't want to. I will state
Hmm.
that. Um, and the time comes in when you're at Weight Watchers, you have to weigh in right at the beginning of the meeting. And when I stepped on the scale, because it's all like private, the woman, she goes, okay, like nothing of it. Meanwhile, you don't know, in her head, she's like, wow, this guy's huge. Like you don't know. You don't know.
Yeah.
And she gave me the card. I don't know if how they do it now, but because I know I'm sure it's probably all digital. But they gave me like this booklet, and it had like a card, and there was a stamp on it. And right next to the stamp was my weight, and it said 574, like point 0.8 or something.
Hmm.
And at that point, I was like, holy shit, like I got to do something. Like that's bad. Like that's really, really bad. Meanwhile, as I'm saying that to myself, there's a bagel place next door. And I'm like, yeah, that's bad. I wonder if I can get like a bacon, egg, and cheese. Like, and that's the mindset was just terrible, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting down, and once I sit down, I was like a little upset. And my mom's like, how'd you do? And I'm looking at him like, I'm taking up 3 seats. What do you mean, how'd I do? Like seriously, you're asking me this? Like,
Yeah.
and I was always so sarcastic.
Hmm.
Um, but I remember sitting there and just upset because I look around and I'm the biggest person in the room.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like none of these people are gonna ever go through what I go through. And it started to really like hit me. Like there's something wrong here. Didn't know what it was. Didn't really at that point though care to know why or what it was that was making me get to such a weight where it's really, really bad to the point where like I'm living on borrowed time.
Yeah.
You know, it's at that point. So um, I went home that day with my ex-wife, and she said to me, you know, I'm worried because your weight is really, really high, Ryan. I'm like, yeah. I was like, yeah. And I didn't really want to talk about it.
Hmm.
And she was like, maybe you should think about the things as to why you eat the way you eat and you do what you do. And she was right because I sat there for a little bit and I was like, there's a lot of reasons why, you know. And I never really thought that I was using food as a coping mechanism,
Hmm.
but that's when I realized that I was. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I feel like so many of us do that, and you don't even realize. Like, people always say, "Well, you're like an emotional eater," and but like, you don't really know what that means, right?
I
Like,
still am. But yeah,
yeah, but and like it takes a while, like like true realization to see it. Like even like the other day, I was stressed at work, and I just like went and grabbed like a Reese's cup because I was like it's just an old habit, and then I went to it, and I felt better for a minute, and then after it, I was like, God damn it, like I
yeah,
didn't need that, right?
yeah. It happens. It's funny. I had, I know this is going to air in October, but I had an argument with my mom last night in the middle of a restaurant. Um, and
the
as me
the
and
best arguments.
yeah, and it was the worst because it got really loud and Allie like got embarrassed and she wanted to like she walked out and it was just really, really bad, right?
Hmm.
And as me and Allie are driving home, uh, I I said to Allie because Allie was driving, I'm like, pull into the shopping center. And she looks at me and she goes, "Why? You want ice cream, right?" I said, "Yup." And she goes, "Why? Because you need to emotionally eat, right?" I went, "Yup." Because
Yeah.
that's my drug. And I was honest about it. I could have said, no, not at all. I have to go in and get toilet paper. Meanwhile, we have like a shit ton of toilet paper at home. Like, could have lied. I didn't. I was like, yeah, I
Yeah.
just want ice cream. And then she said, I have Ben and Jerry's at home. You don't need to go into the store. I have some. And I'm like, all right, good enough. That's my high, and that's where I still have an issue. Um,
Hmm.
it's amazing though how you realize that now. But if this was 10 to 15 years ago, I never would have blinked an eye as to thought about why I was eating a pint of Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Right. And it tasted good.
oh, without a
Yeah.
doubt, Chunky Monkeys, amazing.
Yeah. My the one I found recently was half baked that I like because I never had it ever because I was always iffy about brownie and ice cream. Like
Oh, it's
other than,
so good.
and we got so because we are pregnant, we got it when we were halfway, and I
Okay,
tried some and I was like, oh my God, that's so good.
yeah,
And I even saw now in the store they make a cookie dough version, so you
yep,
can buy like the
mm-hmm.
brownie and the cookie dough. And I'm like, that's dangerous also, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm like a cookie dough fiend. Like anytime I can get some that tastes good, tastes close to actual cookie dough, because so
Mm-hmm.
often they don't. But yeah, so like you were saying that, excuse me. So you got up to like that Weight Watchers meeting. You're at that almost 575. What did you
Mm-hmm.
do next after that?
Um, we came up with a plan, my ex-wife and I, to really try to lose weight with this and to make
Hmm.
it work. Because she was like, Ryan, we're spending the money that we really don't have to do this, right? Because me and her were trying to save at that point. Um, she was like, if we're gonna invest in this, you really got to try to make it work. And she's like, for herself too, because she was heavy as well.
Hmm.
And I said, okay. So I said, you know what? It's not gonna hurt to try to give it my all, right? Okay, sure. The first week, down 12 pounds. And I was like, wow, like in my head, I'm like, if I could keep this going, this would be great. So I started
Yeah.
to go for walks and, on my off time, just try to be more active.
Hmm.
Like the third week hit, I was down to like another 6 pounds. It started to go down because, as you know, you start losing the water weight, it stops, right?
Yeah.
Um, but then like the month hit, and like the fourth week that I was there, I had like another like 18-pound drop out of nowhere. And I was
Wow.
like, oh, like this is insane, right? So fast forward from that day to like 3 months in, I was down almost 90 pounds.
Amazing.
It,
Yeah.
yeah, like really, really quick. And I think it's because I changed so many habits.
Hmm.
I wasn't drinking milk. I wasn't drinking juice. I wasn't drinking soda. I was drinking like water, and I was limiting my Crystal Light because of the aspartame in it.
Hmm.
So I was just making sure of what I was putting into my body. And I also became like really obsessed with like looking up people that were on Facebook and Instagram and just like changing their bodies. I became like really obsessed with Chris Powell. You know who Chris Powell
Yeah,
is?
I do. Yeah, I know his
Yeah.
whole story with that David Smith, who
Yeah.
he like helped like
Yeah.
lose a ton of weight.
He was like the 600-pound virgin, I think they called him, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so I became really obsessed with him, and like I actually reached out to him. I didn't get a response.
Hmm.
Um, but I just like followed him and like watched his things, and like saw like he was on gym bleachers and like jumping over one and going into the other. And I wasn't doing that because I'm afraid of heights. And I know from my fat ass, if I jump up and I miss a thing, I'm going to hurt myself bad. So I wasn't doing that, but I was making sure. I was like, I went to like the nearest track and I was running up the bleachers and coming down. I was doing all that stuff. And the weight was just melting off. I went from 575 to like 483 in a matter of like 7 months.
Wow.
And I felt better. I looked a lot better. I was still big. Don't get me wrong. I was still very, very heavy, but I had a new built confidence to want to continue to be able to do this, right? And then, you know, unfortunately, the marriage starts to go south, and my family started to pass away. A lot of
Hmm.
people in my family started to pass away, and I started to hike back up, and I just didn't care anymore. Um, and that's where it all started to go south, man. It just
Yeah.
started to go really, really sour.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. I mean, so many of us have like similar things that happen, like because you just get kind of in this state where it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and
Without a doubt.
and
No,
and
it's
then,
not.
life hits you, and then you hopefully can get back, and like in God, I can't believe I'm going to use it. Rocky Balboa, when he says, you got to get hit and keep moving forward and keep
You know
getting
what's
up.
funny? When you ask me those at the end of this,
Mhm.
you'll laugh. But
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but truly, like, it's a good message because like so many of us, like you a lot of times in the past we've packed it in and we just go back to how we were.
And it's very
Because
easy
we'll
to
get
do
to a
that.
certain point because it's a lot easier than having to face yourself and
It's
face
your
what's
comfort
going
spot.
on. Yeah.
It's a comfort zone for sure. But the truth of the matter is, and for anybody that's listening, um, you do your best when you're not comfortable.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
and that's the truth. I mean, and I for one, even saying that, I feel like a hypocrite, and that's just me being honest because um, I I'm very, very comfortable with being comfortable. And that's what I like, and I don't want to not be comfortable. So Allie gets mad at me for it because she's like, you never want to try anything new because you're so comfortable into just chilling at home and just doing what you want to do. And I'm like, yeah, like I won't even give it a chance. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm just comfortable being comfortable.
Yeah. I think we all have that certain level of comfortability. Yeah. I think it goes, it's also like it just depends on how much you want to get out there. Like I remember Allie and I were talking when she was on the podcast,
Hmm.
which may or may not have been recorded an hour ago. Um, you know, we had talked about, when we all were first in the accountable life group,
Hmm.
and when I first got in it, I was like, I wasn't even sure I wanted to do it. Like I have a somewhat introverted nature. I was super shy as a kid. And I was like, do I? And I wasn't really like out on Instagram as much. Like I was on it, but I wasn't like always like posting stuff and always doing stories and stuff.
Hmm.
And then like as I got gain more comfortability with talking about my own story, it made it so much easier. Like just to like give people advice and to like give my perspective.
Hmm.
And then like it's funny how quickly you can become comfortable with something that was so uncomfortable at first for you, you know.
Yeah, it's not easy to open up to people in the community, especially when, I mean, I don't know if you were, but like, and I really wasn't, but a lot of people were judged based off of how they are and how severe something they're going through or severe their habits are.
Hmm.
Um, everybody has a lot of different things that they go through. For me, I found with the community that there is no judgment, which is nice. I heard Allie talking to you before, and she said that it's kind of like the gay community where they're very accepting,
Hmm.
because that's what they want. They want to be accepted, right? And I think that's what anybody, especially being overweight, always being for me, always being the fat kid, always being the big guy.
Hmm.
You want to be accepted. You just want to be normal, you know. But then again, if you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, what is normal?
Yeah. Everybody's
Well,
perspective and normal is different too. So because you're
yeah,
always everybody's so self-critical too.
yeah.
All right, so kind of getting back to your story. So you had the weight, the fantastic weight loss, like you said, like over
Hmm.
about 100 pounds or so
Hmm.
within those 7 months, and then you had some bad stuff happen.
Yes.
Then what happened next after that?
So I had lost one of my aunts, and my weight was hiking back up, and I hit like 492, I think.
Mhm.
And I noticed that my weight was creeping back up, and my mom had, we and her were talking, and she was like, "Right, you lost all this weight. I don't want you to like go backwards." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, whatever." As I'm sitting there like throwing like Chips Ahoy in my mouth, right? Um, then I sat down one day and I was sitting there watching TV, and I saw an ad for weight loss surgery.
Mhm.
And this was like, I want to say like 2013. I saw an ad for weight loss surgery on TV. Um, and I always thought about it. I've had friends that I went to high school with that were heavy like me. They had it done and they looked amazing. Right.
Mhm.
And I was like, only if I could do something like that, if I can have my insurance pay for it, et cetera, whatever, because I couldn't afford it because I know that surgery is expensive. And then I told my ex-wife about it, and she was like, "That's the easy way out. Why would you want to do something like that?" And I hate when people say that
Yeah, so do
because they
I.
don't know what it entails, and it sucks. It's really like, so. After her doing some research about it, she's like, "You know what? I'm thinking of doing it myself." I'm like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, That's amazing, right?"
Yeah.
Um, and she ended up doing it first. She got approval and everything. She ended up doing it first, and I saw what she had gone through to do it, and she had to do, a 2 week liquid diet and all this stuff, and her crying because she was an emotional eater too, and then the stuff that she went through the surgery, uh, all the steps that she had to take. And I was thinking to myself as she was doing this, like, Rod, you really want to go through all this?
Mhm.
But and of course, when it was my time to do this, I had to go through all the proper steps and make sure that I was right in the head to do this. Which now that and I'm going to be honest and open here, when you go for weight loss surgery, you have to see a psychiatrist to make sure that you're not wasting not only their time but your time as well, because they're cutting you open to for you to lose
Yeah.
weight, right? And then I'll I pretty much BS'd my way out of that whole conversation with the psychiatrist because I just wanted it. I wanted to lose weight. I wanted it so bad. Not that I was crazy. They also want to make sure that you're not crazy and you're just like laying on the table to get cut open because you like it, like some sicko. Um, which is true. And they actually tell you that. At least for me, they did. They were like, we
Yeah.
want to make sure that you're not like into like self-inflicting wounds. And I'm like, no, like what? But whatever, teach their own. Um, but
I
yeah, I
mean,
BS'd my
because
way.
I guess if like after the surgery, then after a surgery, you could easily reopen it.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
And it actually happened to my ex-wife.
Yeah.
Um, the second day, which they told, they tell you you have to relax and stay home. She wanted to like walk around. And when she got into the car, she like
Oh
sat
man.
down and it ripped open one of the staples that were like in her stomach. And then she had to go to the hospital and had like literally put her out again, like not do surgery, but they had to put her out
And
again
put the
and then
staple
like
back in.
put the staples in not even outside, but inside as well, because it popped because they had to have staples on the inside and on the outside,
Oh
and it
wow.
popped and she started to bleed. So, yeah, you definitely got to be careful with that. Um, so after going through all the steps and doing everything and BSing the psychiatrist, I got approved for everything. I go to the doctor, get to see the doctor one final time, and he goes, "Okay, Ryan, so you're 491 pounds. Unfortunately, I have some bad news." So I'm like, "What's the bad news?" He goes, "The bad news is I can't operate on you at this weight." I'm like, "Okay." So in my head, I'm like, "What do I have to lose? Like 10 pounds?" He's like, "I need you to get down." And he gave me a specific weight. "I need you to get down to 448 pounds."
That's oddly specific.
So oddly specific, right? And I was like, and I said, I don't know why the number. I'll never forget it. And he didn't give
Because
me an
like
answer,
440 would make sense. 450 would make
right?
sense, right?
Right? Yeah,
448.
448. And it was an even number. So I'm like, wait, like, so I said to him, "Why 448?" And he goes, "Because that's what the something would allow me to operate you on, I guess, the table or
Hmm.
whatever, it'll accommodate the weight." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay." He's like, "But that's like the maximum that you can weigh." He's like, "Otherwise we can't do this. If you do not get under 448, I cannot operate on you."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Great." In my head, I'm like, "Wow, 448 from 492." Like, in my head, I'm like, if I could do this, then what do I need you for? Like at that point,
Yeah.
right? Um, but I did it. Over like it took me 4 months to do. Um, but I did it. I made sure that I went for my walks. I made sure that I was eating like nothing but like not even marinated grilled chicken, just
Hmm.
plain grilled chicken. I had to stay away from carbs. He gave me like a whole sheet: no potatoes, like no starches, um, no fruit,
Yeah.
and I did it. No juice, no soda, no water. Not even Crystal Light because the aspartame. The aspartame can make you bloat, so he
Yeah.
didn't want that either. Um, I was like, okay, so I did it, and then the 2 weeks came right before, and I had to do the liquid diet. And the
Hmm.
reason for the liquid diet is because everybody has a fatty liver. They want to make sure that you get under the liver and they have no problems and there's no complications. Because if you have a fatty liver and they have to lift it to get up to underneath it and it cracks or it breaks or whatever, you can die. So um, I ended up doing it. And I will not be embarrassed to say that during the 2 week liquid period, I had several breakdowns. One being that by the time I was going through this, my ex wife was fine. She was already all healed. She was in like her fourth month of doing this. She was back to solid food.
Hmm.
Um, and she had, well, not her, actually, it was my ex mother in law. She was making grilled cheese. And I smelled the grilled cheese and I started to cry because I couldn't have food. I was
Yeah.
drinking bone broth and it was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
Like no salt in it, no pepper, no, it was just straight broth and it was gross.
Oof.
And I
Yeah.
was just really, really upset and I had a breakdown. Um, and I was like flipping out saying, "I can't do this. I'm going to go to the nearest Chinese restaurant and just order myself whatever I wanted." And I didn't, you know, my ex-wife like talked me through it. And then I got to the day of the surgery. And when I got on that scale, I weighed 448 on the, I'm not even exaggerating, 448 on the dot. Like
Wow.
I don't
That's
know
amazing.
how I don't know how I did it. I and it's funny because I swear I wish I had my chart to like show you. I'm not BSing when I say this. It was like by the grace of God that I don't know how I did this because I will again openly admit that 2 days before I had surgery, I had two slices of pizza.
Wow.
Yeah, like the
Jeez.
ball's on me, right? Like,
Yeah.
wow, like, yeah. So, like, the brave. Um, After I had the surgery, I remember like waking up and I told my mom like I had two slices of pizza and she wanted to beat me in the bed, like beat me in the bed. And that's me just, pushing the threshold there, which is not good at all. But
Yeah.
it was a really, when I take a look back at it, it was a really painful time to go through that, man, because it messes with your mind. And a lot of people think like weight loss surgery is easy. It's not. Weight loss surgery was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I laid up on a table to get cut open. That was, let's see, that was 2014. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20, 7 years ago. I had to do that on my hands because I'm not a mathematician. 7 years ago, and I'm still 360 pounds.
Yeah.
So it sucks because the weight loss surgery was successful for a while, but I still believe in my heart that I didn't have the right one. I had the gastric sleeve done.
Mm-hmm.
And every doctor I go to, when I talk to them about this, they were like, at that weight, even at 448 pounds, why didn't you have the gastric bypass done? And I'm like, well, the sleeve was recommended to me. My ex-wife had the sleeve, and the doctor said that he thought that it would be fine. And they were like, yeah, no, your BMI, that being high and you being that weight, you should have had the bypass, especially with your habits. And I'm like, well, shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? Or, vice versa, and like just not do anything at all. You know, they were like, no, you could have a revision. I'm like, oh, I could do a revision. And when the time came that I went through all those steps, the surgeon decided that he didn't want to do it because he thought that I was not ready and I abused it the first time. So,
Oh man.
yeah,
Eesh.
yeah, yeah. So, and when I actually, after I got divorced and I met with Ali, I was trying to do a revision because I had no insurance and I was going to see, if they would actually consider it again. And literally right now, because after, I don't know if you know this, but if you want to have a revision and it's been so long, like a few years past, even though it's the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
you have to go through all the steps again.
Uh,
You have to go through sitting down in a meeting at first to learn about all this again. You have to take the steps, again, to do this.
God.
So it's going through it a second time, and it sucks. There's no meeting for like, oh, you've had surgery done before, so all right, here's what we're gonna do. This is for newcomers who want the surgery, who want to learn about it, and then there's a room for like the people who already had it but want to do a revision because they're
Yeah.
stuck. Nothing like that. You have to go through it again.
Man.
All the same visits as well. You have to go through a physical. You have to go through a psychiatric evaluation. You have to go through everything in order to get a revision done.
Yeah. Man.
So
I
is
mean,
it worth it?
I can kind of see the physical and the psychiatric because in so many years your mental state
Mm-hmm.
could change, right? But
Sure.
like have to do like all the intro meeting, like like all that stuff just seems a bit
Yeah,
monotonous.
I know how it works.
Mm.
Um, and then you got to sit through all the meeting again of listening to everybody's worst habits. And that was another thing that messed with me the first time was sitting through a meeting where everybody was like, it was kind of like AA. I don't know if you've
Hmm.
ever been to like an Overeaters Anonymous meeting.
I have not.
Yeah, I have, and that was not fun. Because I felt like I was sitting there with the Golden Girls. I was the only guy and the only young guy in the room, and then I had like Blanche Devereaux and like Dorothy and like sitting around me, and then it was just a mess. But
I love the Golden Girls, but
me too. It's a great show.
yeah.
It's a great show.
Not many guys would say that.
No,
Uh,
it's a great show.
yeah. I have the entire DVD set, but
Yeah, they probably don't get the jokes. That's what it is. It's funny. It's a funny show.
yeah, no, people that don't like it don't get the jokes, or they don't even think about it because they're like, it's just a bunch of old ladies. How funny could it be?
No, it's funny.
But I'm like, it's the
It's
same
funny.
people that wrote Frasier. If you like Frasier, or if you
Yeah.
like that kind of humor. But yeah, so and I've heard that multiple times from people, either like about Weight Watchers meetings or other like diet club meetings, is they
Mm-hmm.
wind up being in a room with a lot of older women mostly,
Mm-hmm.
and they just feel like kind of outside of their element in that way, right?
Well,
Because you don't feel like you're like represented really, because like you're the only person.
well, yeah, and but you also get to like listen to other people's habits. Like they go around at one point and they say like, what is let me like the doctor will go around and say, let me ask you and be open about it. What's the one thing you do that you know is bad?
Hmm.
And I know for me, I'm a nighttime eater. I'm a night feeder.
Hmm.
So I will eat a lot of stuff at night. Like if it was up to me, I would stay up every night until 2 in the morning, sit in front of the TV, play a game or watch a movie, have some Oreos and milk, maybe have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or a bowl of cereal and just
Hmm.
hang out, right? And just chill. But when you're sitting there and you're listening to other people's like things like they're going through and what they do, you're like, holy shit, like, wow. Like there was one guy who was a construction worker, but like 400 pounds. He reminded me of Vito from The Sopranos, but legit, like, bro, like in the meeting, like he had like the orange and yellow vest on, and he had his dirty jeans, his belly
Yeah.
was hanging out of his shirt,
Hmm.
and he had it with him. He had like, you ever see like one of those like Spanish like Tang like gallons of juice like at a
Yeah.
gas station that they sell? He had it with him because he was drinking it. And he said he goes through three of them a day.
Three.
Yeah,
Wow.
three a day. I was like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, no, that's bad. Then there was another guy who said that he only eats breakfast and doesn't eat anything else for the day. He was like 500 pounds. And the doctor says, well, how much breakfast are you eating? Can you describe your breakfast? He's like, yeah, I have about 8 eggs. I have about almost 2 pounds of bacon. He's like, and it gets me through the day. And I'm just like, bro, am I in the twilight zone here? Like, I don't do this. Like, what is going on? And it's almost equivalent to what you see on my 600-pound life.
Yeah, yeah. He was doing what my OMAD, but not right.
Well, the one meal a day, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's almost equivalent to what you see on my 600-pound life.
Hmm.
Like with these people eating, like when they order like pizza, they order like 2 pies for themselves and like
Oh yeah.
2 dozen knots, and they kill it all within like 25 minutes. Like how? How?
Yeah.
I was never like that. My biggest
Every
thing.
time my wife and I watch, because we watched that whole series last year
Mhm.
during the
Yeah,
pandemic, because
yeah,
I was like, I never seen it, and maybe I should like, because I'm like, I used to be 600 pounds, so I have my own version of this, right?
sure.
And we watched it. And every time they bring in the food, I'm just like,
Yeah,
and
and,
for
I,
those of
and
you
I'm
listening, I had my mouth open because I was just shocked.
yeah, because it's a lot, and it's especially if you don't have those habits, to see something else that's more severe, and yours is severe, right? You know what you
Hmm.
do, and you know it's bad.
For sure,
But to see somebody else, and is that passing judgment? Maybe,
a little bit.
sure, but at the same time, you're mostly in shock because you can't believe, like, holy shit, like I'm bad, but what you're doing, like, what, this is insane. And I'm terrible when I watch my 600-pound life because I'm sitting there, I'm eating ice cream as I'm watching it. And like, there's some things where I'm just like, holy God, like what is going, like there was an episode where the guy was like, I think he was from Texas. He was like a cowboy and he was sitting on the couch and there were two women that were sitting on this and he went to go stand up and he fell and I was hysterical. Like legit, like I turned purple.
Oh,
I was hysterical because like
the,
as he fell, his pants fell down, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Like this is like, come on, man! Like,
the one that got me was the guy that goes, "Ow, my leg." I
my
don't know why.
leg, yeah, yeah. Or I do it
Uh,
to Allie all
uh,
the time. We're driving. I look at her and I go, "I'll make this work. I promise." And she gets hysterical, and it's just like it's really bad. And I'm
yeah,
probably yeah.
we're probably both going to hell, so it's all right.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to hell at that point. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do sympathize with a lot of it because as I was sitting in that meeting and I'm listening to a lot of this, I was just like, wow, I think I'm bad, but like there's so many other people that are going through either the same thing or worse.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I don't have the right to judge because what I do is no worse than what they're doing. It's nothing makes it better.
Yeah.
I'm okay. He drinks 3 gallons of that Spanish, juice or whatever he's drinking, and he loves it. I'm sitting in front of the TV at 1 in the morning eating a whole pack of double stuffed Oreos. Where do
Hmm.
I get off pointing a finger?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
3 gallons of juice. And to one person who doesn't think twice about it, who can burn it because the metabolism is through the roof,
Hmm.
I can eat a whole pack of Oreos, no problem. And you're like, yeah, that's great. You do it. You look great. I do it. My ass jiggles for like 3 weeks. So it's like,
Yeah. I had
Hmm.
an interesting thing the other week. I was at a diner meeting up with somebody from Instagram in person in Pennsylvania, and so we're sitting there. I was in a booth, which is new. It still feels new to me. It's been about a year that or
Hmm.
9 months that I can go in a booth, or that I've tried. And so I'm sitting there, I get some breakfast, and then I see this guy come in, and he's like not as big as I was, but close, right? I see him come in, and he's sitting at a table because he can't fit in the booth, and
Hmm.
then like I see them bring out like a ton, like a lot of food to for him, and I'm just like, and I was like, I kind of stared a little bit, but it wasn't like judgment. It was just like this like fascination that I'm like, that used to be like how I was,
Yeah,
and
because you're
I wouldn't
picturing
even think
yourself
about it.
there.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
I pictured myself, like I pictured myself in his shoes as I've
Hmm.
been there, and I'm just like,
Sure.
man, and it's just like one of those realizations that you don't realize what you were doing, even because you don't think about it. Like it was so much of it was just like it was just how life was, right?
Yeah. Um, to this day, and Ali and I had an argument about this 2 weeks ago. Um, I still sometimes can't fit in a booth.
Hmm.
Again, everybody's um, body type is different, right? You're tall. How tall are you? You're 6'2".
Almost a little bit under.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm like 5'11",
Hmm.
borderline 6 foot. Okay, um, but I carry my weight in my shoulders and in my chest and in my belly.
Hmm.
My legs, even though my legs are big, they're probably the tiniest thing on my body. Um,
Yeah,
but my
I'm similar. I think we talked about this before, but I have like short legs. I have like a long torso.
Yep, same,
Yeah. So,
same.
but
So
the way my belly carries is it like so it's from still from when I was 600. Like it hangs low on the one side
mhm,
because I got surgery and had some excess lymphedema removed, but the right side they didn't cut it even. So I have this
mhm,
excess that just hangs, and like that's probably so like when I sit in a booth, that goes underneath, so it doesn't
yeah,
affect me when I'm sitting. So I have a smaller like
right.
chest area. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm actually right around my belly area. If I sit in the booth, sometimes like it's a tight fit.
Hmm.
So and also chairs too. Even at my weight, like I'm worried. Like if we go to a restaurant, like if the chair has like the handles on the sides, like the
Oh yeah.
arms, I'm nervous as shit. So we went to a place like 2 weeks ago, and when we went in, I noticed that there were some tables, but they were all taken, and then there were booths, right?
Hmm.
And I sometimes I don't think about it, sometimes I do.
Hmm.
And then the woman was like, "Hey, listen, there's an hour wait. We have a tent outside if you guys want to sit outside as well." I don't like eating outside for
Yeah.
two reasons. One, I'm always worried about the chair. Number two, um, especially in the summertime, bugs flying around my food. I just get annoyed and I don't like it.
Yeah.
Mosquitoes. I don't like being bitten while I'm eating. I hate it.
Yeah.
So Allie loves sitting outside. She loves me being near the water, etc. Right. I right away, Allie's like, yeah, we'll sit outside. And I got annoyed. And I was like, you don't think about how I feel knowing that I'm a big guy in the chair, And she's like, but I always sacrifice. And it was about sacrificing. And Allie's, like 5'1.5", and literally more than half my size. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm so much bigger than she is.
Hmm.
Um, to the point where she doesn't have those issues. Even at her heaviest, she didn't have those issues.
Hmm.
You know, um, and I don't expect her to feel bad for me because it's up to me to do something about it, right?
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, I wanted her to understand a little bit more. But also, Allie gets hangry. So when Allie gets hangry, there's no talking to her with that. So
I mean, we
um,
all get there, right?
no, we definitely. Oh, I'm the worst when it comes to that. Um, but long story short, I sat down into the chair. I said, you know what, screw it. We're here. If they can get us in 20 minutes and we can sit outside, that's fine. We sat down and I was fine in the chair. I was
Hmm.
fine. The food sucked and it was stupid expensive. But
Yeah.
and we both left hungry. That's how bad it
Oh,
was.
that's the worst.
Yeah, it was the worst. And at the end, like I apologized to her in the car, and she was like, yeah, she's like, I should be, I understand whatever, right? But those things still haunt me. Of,
Hmm.
am I going to fit in a chair? Am I going to fit in a booth?
Hmm.
Is this going to be comfortable for me? And I just 9 times out of 10 when I walk into a restaurant, I'm like, Hey, can I have a table for two? Oh yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, and make sure it's a table. I don't want a
Yeah.
booth. Okay, no booth, no problem. Another thing that pisses me off though is a thin person who doesn't think. And it's a dude, it's annoying to me because they don't understand. And not for nothing. Again, if I maybe it's just me, maybe because I don't think about these things. But if you're 6'2" almost, and let's say you're, I don't know, a person's over 400 pounds, I take one look at them and I'm gonna go, okay, I'm gonna sit them in booth A over there, knowing. And when we get to the booth, the guy's like, yeah, no, like I'd rather have a table. Like, why go through that? And people don't think, and then
Mhm.
they see you trying to like squeeze in. I wonder if is it a joke to them that's happening, or they just really don't get it.
So I think often they're just busy too, and they're not always thinking about it. I mean,
I
especially if it's a
guess.
busy restaurant, like they're looking for what's the soonest open table, and they might not
Yeah.
think about it. So that's why when I at my heaviest up until last year, I would go and whenever I do like open table to make reservations and stuff,
Hmm.
because I just wanted to, I hate waiting, so it was like my favorite thing. So I would always say, I always put in the notes, I put no booth, table please, every single time.
Yeah.
And and that was just what I did. And and I almost never had an issue. I even got like my friends that I would go out hang out with down here, like they would know to get a table and not a
Hmm.
booth. Because I
Yeah.
like a couple times like they would get there before me or something and or whatever, and they get a booth and I'm like, I can't do a booth. Like I can't. Like it's not even gonna work. It's not even close to working.
Yeah. Sure. And it sucks because at that point they all, not that they have to suffer, but they can fit in a booth and they're comfortable with it.
Mhm.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Also, there's been times where I would go into a restaurant and I would say, "Hey, can I have a table?" And not even say no booth, and they would give us just a regular table, right? No
Mhm.
booth, and we would sit down, and Allie would say, "Those booths look so comfortable." Like, and then I would look at them, and I would look at the opening of the booth from the table to to the back of the
Oh
chair, and I'm
yeah.
like, "Yeah, that's not happening." And she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh," and she would sit there, and you could see like she's kind of depressed about it. Not
Hmm.
depressed. She's just like, she's like, it sucks, like
Yeah.
it does suck. But again, that's up to me
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I could be better with it.
The half table half booths were my favorite because then you kind of got the booth and you also had the
Yes,
table
the
option.
table. Yes, I would tell her, yeah, you sit on the booth side, yeah, and then I'll sit in the chair, and that way it looks normal to everybody. We're fine
Yeah.
now. Now I'm not the fat bastard that's in the room. I get it. That's cool. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's always like it's the things people don't think about in our journeys, like especially when we're like the supersized fat people,
correct.
because we're not like even at like we're near the same size now, right? Like you're
Hmm.
360s, I'm 370s. So
Hmm.
but we've also lost a significant amount of weight from our
Yes.
heaviest, over
Yes.
200 each, right?
Hmm.
And like being that size is like life is different. Life is not easy.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Like I said though, it's weird. Some things I can do, some things I cannot do. Um, booth, like I said, is still iffy. Plane, I'm still not comfortable in one seat. I don't know if I lose like another 40 to 50 pounds, maybe I might be singing a different tune.
Mhm.
But I just don't want to sit in a plane seat. I still need an extender without a doubt.
Yeah.
Um, but I also don't want anybody touching me either. So like I'd
Yeah.
rather pay for the second seat and
So,
have like my backpack next to me or
so,
something
so,
than
so,
somebody rubbing up against me.
so I like to give a little life hack to anyone that doesn't know. I don't know if you know, but Southwest, they give you a second seat. You pay for it up front, and you get it refunded on the back end.
Really? How?
Yeah, it's a customer size policy because they want people that are big to have a second seat. They give it to you for free if they have the opening at the airport, but I don't like to take that risk. So I pay
Yeah.
for it up front. I call them after I get back from my round trip flight and tell them, yeah, I want to get my refund on my extra seat. And then I give them like my confirmation number. They look it up and it's like a 5 minute process. And you get it within like
Really?
3 to 4 business days. You get your refund on your credit card. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I discovered that about 2017, 2016, somewhere in there. Yeah, because I don't even know how I found out about it, but I tried it and I was like, man, this like, and it works easy. Like you'd expect, oh, it's gonna be a hassle, get your money back and all that, and it's super easy. And then you always have that extra seat between, like have to go fly, we always have a seat between us for extra room, all that.
Really?
Yeah, you just can't sit in an exit row. That's the only deal.
You can't sit in the what? I'm sorry.
Exit row.
An
You can't
exit
sit in
row.
the
Yeah,
exit
I
row.
don't. That's okay. That's fine.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would never do that anyway.
yeah. So yeah, so you get if you can look it up, and there's plenty of people that talk about it. Like other airlines have a customer size policy as well, but they don't give you the refund unless
Yeah.
like the plane. Usually, if the plane's not full, they might. Like if it's not totally full, then they will. But that's about the only other time. So yeah, so you just pay up front, and then you get it back, and it's kind of like you already paid for it. You already paid your bill, right? So you're like, it's just money coming into my account I didn't have at that
Yeah,
point when
that's
it's
kind
months
of.
later.
I mean, that's nice. And the funny thing about that is we have to use Southwest to come back up here in August, so that's going to be nice. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I like to share that because it's like some people you learn these things and you're just like, what? How did I not know this? Like years
Yeah,
because
I
I was
mean,
even- I Baltimore is a Southwest hub, so I flew
mhm.
Southwest all the time. I never knew this, and I was like, God, I wish I knew this because I don't want to stressed all the time about flying.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it gets expensive too. I mean, for round trip, and when I buy two seats, for me, it's like 400 and change.
Hmm.
And then for Allie, she's like, oh, it's only for round trip, it's like two and change. I'm like, oh, it must be nice. Like, but I
Yeah.
get it because I'm using two seats. I
Hmm.
get it, but I'm also more comfortable. I think, dude, if you look at the plane and you look around you, like even the smallest people, they're like uncomfortable because they're sitting and they have somebody brushed up right against them. It's like,
Well, and if you going back to Golden Girls since we're there, if you watch that show and you see the scenes where they fly somewhere and you
mhm,
see the airplane seats and there are two seats in the same space that we
yeah,
now have three
yep.
because they wanted to maximize their space in planes, but they've they've restricted the seats so much and Americans are getting so much wider, so it doesn't compute and like it's just they are uncomfortable as hell.
Oh,
Um,
without a doubt.
and I don't have the money to fly business class, so
Yeah,
I
no, neither do I. So
but yeah,
it is what it is.
yeah, I know. So what I wanted to do is because I know we've been talking about a lot of random stuff with our weight loss, with our we'll call them our 500 plus lives, right? 500 plus
Mhm,
pound lives,
that
um,
works.
or almost 600 pound life. So I know that in the last year or so you've gone down, obviously because you said you're down at the 360s. So
Mhm.
I know that you're working with a nutritionist and all that. So how has that been like change, like trying to when you went down this time, like this last dip?
Okay, so I'll start here. I did hear when Allie was talking to you. I heard she said that I was pretty much the start of as to why she started doing that, right?
Hmm.
Um, I had gotten divorced. Life was a little upside down at that point. Um, but I wanted to make sure that if I was gonna break away from my marriage and change everything around, I needed to do it the right way. Um, and I wanted to better myself. And when you're single and you only have to worry about yourself, you can do those things. You can focus on yourself, right? Well, I met Allie, and not that that was a bad thing because Allie's my world and I love her to death.
Hmm.
But um, when you meet somebody and you get happy, things start to take a little bit of a swerve. And if you get a hold of it, then you'll be fine. But if you don't, and it just goes away, and then you both become quote happy together, tends to have a little bit of a not a downfall, but could go into a downward spiral.
Yeah.
So what happened was I was laying in bed one day and with her, and we were just hanging out, and I was going through Instagram and just scrolling through, and I found Noah's page at Transformational Truth, and I saw one of his videos of one of his clients with transformation, and I was like,
Hmm.
hmm. And the reason why I was doing this was because she wanted me to go to Florida and spend like a week at her dad's house with her. And I was like, yeah, at like 484 pounds, I don't know if that's going to be something that I want to really do.
Hmm.
Because after my marriage ended and everything, my weight hiked back up like really, really bad. Like it went up. Like I went from my lowest being like 270s around there from the weight loss surgery,
Hmm.
and over the years peaking back up and then going back up to 480 pounds. Okay.
Yeah.
So Uh, After I found Noah, I sent him a message, and I'm thinking, all right, this guy's got hundreds of thousands of followers. He's not going to respond to me. I wrote him at like 4 in the morning, not realizing he was on the other side of the world. I wake up and I get a message from him saying, "Hey, let's talk, let's do this, and what, etc." And then, literally within 2 days, I signed up. Give me a plan, and I said, "I'm going to do this. I'm going to work the plan." And I told Allie. Allie was like, "Oh, well, I'll see how you do first. I don't know about all this hiring
Hmm.
somebody from Instagram." And then I did it, and then like my first week, I was down like almost 20 pounds.
Wow.
Lost a lot of weight in a short period of time. Drinking a lot of water, eating like chicken on like this weird flatbread thing that like would crunch up. I forget what the bread is called. Oh, lavash bread.
Hmm.
That was the first time I ate that, and I hated it at first. No, if you ever see this, that's too bad because I hate it then and I hate it now. Um, uh,
I don't think it's too bad actually, but
oh, it
sure.
sucks, dude. It is the worst. It's like it's not even bread. To even have the word bread next to lavash is
I think of it as a
no.
wrap more than a
A crunchy wrap maybe because he tells you to bake it. Like, yeah, no.
yeah.
Um, so after doing that though, him giving me a meal plan, and then him telling me to start off small with the walks. Just walk 15 minutes a day.
Hmm.
Okay, I'll do my best, right? Started doing it, and then more weight started to come off, and more weight started to come off. And fast forward to like now, I mean, I'm still down over 100 pounds with Noah. So, um, he brought a lot of, it made me realize a lot when it comes to like overeating and having a purpose, right? As to, what is the purpose of you doing these things? Um, it also helps that you have somebody else on the same page with you doing it with you.
Hmm.
Because when you're in a relationship, um, if one person is doing it and another person's not, it tends to go like this.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons, a lot of factors that come into play. One person's losing weight and looking good, and you're not, so you get jealous of the other person, and other people are going to notice them, right? The other thing is that the other person just doesn't want to eat garbage anymore, and you still do, and it's not really working out because now you're spending more money than that's not necessary, and there's food in the house, and so, and those all, by the way, that's what we go through. And I'm not like, I don't think Ali would be mad, but like it's true because Ali never really, very rarely wants to eat out. She'd
Hmm.
rather make food at home. She'd rather do that. Me, I'm like, what are you making for dinner? What are you eating over there? I'm making chicken pieces with pesto. And I'm like, yeah, but a Crunch Wrap Supreme sounds so much better than that. Like, like, or
Yeah.
not even that, or like two slices of pizza or a chicken parm hero just sounds so much better than that.
Hmm.
Sure, it does. But I've also noticed that with doing all this, how it makes me feel afterwards too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you notice it, but like if you go from eating healthy to eating one of like Noah's meals or eating something that's just genuinely healthy, like a piece of grilled chicken with like broccoli on the side or asparagus, right? But if you go eat like a burger from like Burger King or like a taco from Taco Bell, after you eat it, it makes you feel good while you're doing it. But right after, I feel like garbage, man. Like I really do. It's not the same feeling. You get full, but it's a different full. And for anybody watching this or listening to this, you have to understand the difference. When you're eating something that's nutritious for your body does get full. You do feel satisfied, but in a certain way. When you're eating Chinese food or pizza or Taco Bell, after you eat that, and again, I could be wrong, but I would say like 9 times out of 10, after you eat it, you want to take a nap.
Yeah.
Like I just want to sit there and like slouch in a chair and then doze off for a little while because it's everything that's in it, everything that's not nutritious for your body makes you feel what you're eating is it's when I say it's garbage, it's garbage. It's not nutritious in any single way. And if you're going to go to those places and people are like, oh, well, I go there and I get extra meat. Is it meat though? Like, is it like, I'm not saying that they're lying, but I find it hard to believe that there's 4 grams or 5 grams of protein in a Doritos Los Tacos. Like I'm sorry, I just for the amount of meat that they give, there's no way. Like
Oh no,
no
yeah,
way.
I don't like Taco Bell anymore, but yeah,
Yeah, it's not the
you're
same.
very right. I get that more. So usually, so pizza I usually do like I get the thin crust because it's less. I just feel like less lethargic after I eat it.
Well, that's because there's not much. Well, that's nothing carb overload.
Yeah, yeah. So I get the thin crust, and I also have it on planned days when I do a high carb meal, what we call a carb cycle, and
Hmm.
then on but Chinese food is when I notice it more than anything.
Oh, without a doubt. And Allie says to me, "Oh, it's the MSG," and I'm like, "Madison Square Garden?" Like, she's like, "No, there's MSG, there's chemicals," and I'm like, "Whatever." When I was a kid, um, and I don't know about now. I look at the menu now and I'm like, I don't see it on there. But when I was a kid, because there was a big thing with MSG back in like the '90s.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I would order Chinese food. I would look at the menu, and they all over the menu, no MSG, no MSG, no MSG.
Hmm.
Now you don't see it on the Chinese menus. You ever notice that?
I
You don't
hadn't
see
thought
it
about
there.
it, but yeah, you don't because it was a
You
big thing.
don't.
You're right. In the '90s, it was a big thing on in any Asian food. You go
Mm-hmm.
to a restaurant, you see like no MSG, like they have like little placards on the table, like next to the
Yep.
soy sauce, and
Mm-hmm.
have it on the menu. And yeah, you don't see it because I'm sure it's in there.
It's definitely in there now.
Yeah,
But yeah, like Chinese food, I love Chinese food, love it. But it's probably the worst thing that you could probably eat.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's
It is tasty. I don't get it. We used to get it like every week. I actually, it's something we usually ate while we were watching My 600 Pound Life. But
yeah, it becomes bad when you go to the local Chinese spot and you walk in and the guy's like, "Hi, Ryan, same thing." It's
yeah,
bad.
I know.
That's bad. Really, really bad.
Yeah, and you got plenty of options being up in New York. Like it can be a little tougher
Yeah.
down here, and because I don't live in DC, so it's like suburbs, and it's we have certain things available, and then like you eventually find the place that you like the best.
Well, you're in where? You're in Philly, right?
Baltimore area.
You're in Maryland?
Yeah, yeah. I am from Pennsylvania, but I live in Maryland.
Oh, I did not know that. My friend actually wants to move up to Maryland.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's moving there probably within the next 2 years. Yeah,
From where?
from Islip over here in New York.
Okay, okay. I just ask because like people usually aren't New York's different. People in other areas aren't used to aren't always ready for the cost of living adjustment for
Why is
Maryland.
it more expensive?
It's very expensive to live in Maryland because you got the
Really?
You got DC Baltimore metro area, and it's just everything's more expensive. Gas isn't. Gas is cheaper, but it's just you don't realize it at first, and then it's just slowly like over time, like everything is more expensive. Like you go and get like stuff at any fast food place, it's slightly more expensive than it is in Pennsylvania or Virginia.
Yeah, but I think him going from New York to
Yeah,
Maryland
yeah,
is
yeah,
going to be a big change.
yeah,
It's
yeah. I mean,
cheaper there for sure.
yeah, yeah. That's the one difference. Like if you were saying New York or like San Francisco or LA, I would say you'd be fine. But like I was living in rural Pennsylvania when I moved here, and it was a big adjustment. And some people just
Oh, well,
don't like it, and they wind up moving. They wind up leaving because there's a large tech sector here in DC metro area. So you get a lot of influx, and so you're getting a lot of the people from like Silicon Valley, where it's expensive to live, come here and makes it expensive to live. So yeah, so yeah, the wonders of Chinese food. But you're absolutely right about how it makes you. I always say like lethargic, kind of like after I eat
yes.
it. It's similar to like Thanksgiving, right? Like after you like have that carb
Yeah.
overload, and it's similar
Hmm.
because people are like, well, I don't have like I'm not having like a ton of bread and I only have a little bit of rice. I'm like, yeah, but all the sauce has like a shit ton of carbs in it.
Yeah, there's a lot of carbs in Chinese food, especially because I mean, depending on what you get, right?
Hmm.
Me, I like I like sesame chicken or
Yeah,
General Tso's chicken
yeah.
with.
I get General Tso's or bourbon chicken. They're my two go tos.
See, I don't know if my Chinese spot over here has bourbon chicken. It sounds good. Bourbon chicken usually is in the mall when you go to
Yeah,
like one of those like Panda Express or China
yeah.
Express or whatever in the mall. They have bourbon chicken there. But I like boneless ribs. So now you have every boneless ribs that are fried and they put in the salamander, right? And then that
Hmm.
rich, heavy red sauce. Then you got General Tso's chicken, which is breaded and then fried. and
Hmm.
then on top of fried rice, and
Yeah.
they get the broccoli. Oh, it comes with broccoli. There's
Yeah,
two
like
pieces of
yeah,
broccoli in
two
there
pieces of broccoli. I
with,
know.
that's drenched inside the fattening soy sauce that's
Yeah,
loaded with salt,
I
right?
know.
So and then you have the egg roll, and then you have the appetizer, whatever you get, which is like it could be fried dumplings or fried wontons or whatever.
Hmm.
I mean, listen, it's all delicious. However, if you're gonna eat it, I would eat it at like 8 o'clock at night and not move at all afterwards because there's no point. Because if you eat that during the day, you're not going to do anything the rest of the day. You want to sleep. Um, I haven't had since I decided that we were going to move to Florida. Um, I haven't had Chinese food. Um, I tried to get back on track. I know I've been a little bit bad with posting on Instagram as far as like even accessing like my working on Ryan page, because I'm always so active on my other pages. But um, the the whole thing with getting on track and using my Instagram page like my fitness page for motivation has become somewhat stale for me. Um, and I spoke about this to John. I spoke about this on the ALG call. I think it was like 2 weeks ago or something like that. Where the reason why I stopped was because, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack about this, but I feel like all I see is positivity in the weight loss community. I
Hmm.
don't see any of the negatives. Nobody discusses what they're going through on a daily on a daily basis, in and out.
Hmm.
You know, I'm not saying to share like your personal God with somebody passed away and you're grieving or but every day, like you said, going back to before, every day is not sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
Okay. To quote Rocky Balboa, the world is a nasty and mean place. Okay. And that's true because everybody goes through something every single day. Every day can't be, I mean, you can have good days, sure. But for every one of those good days, there's a bad day.
Hmm.
Okay. And I don't give a shit who you are. During that good day, something definitely goes wrong at least once. It might not be severe, but you're like, oh, this sucks. Doesn't ruin your good day, right? But there is something there. And I feel like in the weight loss community, nobody discusses those things.
Hmm.
You see the fitness models, the women who, I'm not going to say names, but the women who went from 400 pounds, 300 pounds to like 100 and change. And all you see is them making shakes and then making recipes and them posing with their leggings on and all the stuff that they're showing off. And you never ever see the sad parts of their life, what they went through, why they did what they did. Now it's all about who sponsors them,
Hmm.
what they can do for themselves, and where they got their outfits. To me, it's like I'm looking for motivation. Like I want to, and there are some accounts that if you find them and you follow them, there are some accounts where you can look at and be like, wow, like this guy doesn't give up. Wow, he really, what he's really discussing like what's going on in his life that he didn't have a great day, even though he looks great, but wow, it sucks what he went through. That's terrible, but he's still doing it. Like
Yeah.
there are those accounts, but there's so many more of the other accounts where it's like, look at me, I'm glamorous. I lost 300 pounds. Look,
Hmm.
here's what I can sell you. Versus, yeah, I had a really terrible day at work. My boss was shitting on me so much. I wanted to go home and just have Chinese food or have Taco Bell. I ate it, but I'm gonna try again. And I'm
Hmm.
still gonna do good. Like you see them, but they're not. They're so far in between, and it's
Yeah.
like,
I will say two accounts that I think do a good amount of showing the realness is Frank is losing weight and Fat Chance trying. They
mhm,
both do tend to show the negatives
yeah,
when they slip up. I try to do it when I can but then I also am at the point where I don't post as much just because it's become like such a time sink, like of
yeah,
being on it, and I like going on it, but I also just I don't even want to, half the time I'm not posting the normal transformation updates because I'm just like, it's it just is like it's kind of like it almost feels like repetitious, right? Like
A little bit, yeah, to the
Yeah.
point where you're seeing the same thing all the time and nothing's ever changed.
Hmm.
That's my biggest problem with the weight loss community.
Yeah.
And that's why I've dropped off a little bit. And everyone's like, oh, they still check up on me. The originals, they still check up on me. And I sometimes I still talk to you and I still feel bad because I know you'll like message me and then like 3 days goes by and I don't check my working on Ryan page, which I should probably tell you that if you ever did want to reach out to me, the best place would probably be my 80s page because then
Hmm.
I will definitely respond to it.
Well,
I try to
I
respond to
I
make
also
sure
have you
everybody.
on. We're also Facebook friends, so I can also
That's
hit you
right.
up there.
That too. Yes, you
Yeah.
can. Because then I'll actually get it because my working Orion page, I should be more active. I should. And I do have people that sometimes like will message me like, hey, how you doing? Hey, can I have that recipe? And I'm like, sure. Now I got to dig back to it because I haven't used it in like a month. But yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
All right. Well, hey, I want to kind of transition a little bit here, and so I asked everybody that comes on the show to think of a topic, like of a hobby or an interest that you have outside of weight loss, fitness,
mhm.
and what's yours for today?
I think if anybody does know about like me, or if they follow my working Orion page, because I do promote it there, it would be my 80s and 90s page. Um, Yeah, I love it, man. I really, really do. It's something that for the one thing that I'm passionate about, and for the one thing that like my ex-wife always like ragged on me on was, I'm sorry, ragged on me for, um, was running my 80s page because it took a lot of time to start.
Hmm.
And then the fact that I took on a 90s page as well. And um, yeah, like it's just, I'm passionate about it. And I think the reason why I'm passionate about it is because it goes back to my childhood, which was a very good time. My whole family was alive. I had no worries. The world
Hmm.
was definitely a better place to be in. Um, we didn't have the cancel culture that we do today.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just a better time. And I love grabbing certain things from my childhood and clips and posting it and then getting feedback from other people around the world that feel the same way that I do.
Yeah.
And to think that, and people label me this all the time, and I sometimes don't think about it, but I guess I am, to become a social influencer. Um, I don't think about it that way because it's an 80s page and a 90s page, but technically you're influencing people to go back to the 80s and 90s.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah. Um, but I am that I would say running those pages is my hobby for sure. I'm a gamer too. I'm
Yeah.
definitely a huge gamer. I love video games, but running my pages is something that I'll never stop. Even when I'm on vacation, like Ali will roll her eyes and I'm like, she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, making this really quick. Leave me be. And she's like, okay. Like she knows, but like it's just something that I don't think I'll ever stop. And I'm just gonna continue to grow. So yeah, that's what I'm passionate about, man. That's my
Aw-
hobby.
Awesome. Yeah. I love those pages because I mean we're about the same age.
Yeah.
Like 366 days apart.
Mm-hmm.
And uh and I think it's really cool too is I remember last year your birthday when you like got like birthday didn't you get like birthday wishes from like Hulk Hogan?
Yeah, man. I got birthday wishes from Hulk. I got birthday wishes from Sylvester Stallone, um, Corey Feldman, Will Wheaton,
Hmm.
um, Sean Astin,
Yeah.
which is pretty much like the Goonies cast, right? Um, uh, yeah, it was just surreal, and the reason for that is because little people, people don't know. I've spoken to Sylvester Stallone. Um, I've spoken to Hulk. I've spoken to all of them, and they're genuinely nice people. And I continuously shout them out. I put like their clips up and stuff, and they know. And if you look at some of the clips, they'll like them. They can't like everything because they're not, they're very, very busy people, obviously.
Hmm.
But they do like them and they do follow me. So it's like, except for Hulk. Hulk, who's my idol, does not follow me, but Sylvester Stallone follows me, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Um, but the rest of them do, and like it's just it was really. I think that was aside from Allie taking me. Wait, I think I'm mixing the gifts up. I know. Was it the anniversary that she? Wait, this is no. It's for my birthday. Allie took me to. She took me to the Karate Kid to see the Karate Kid in the theater. Um, but yeah, aside from that, that was like one of the best gifts I've gotten was to get like a shout out from all those guys to say, "Hey, happy birthday!" Like they actually saw and remembered.
Hmm.
Like it was really really nice. That was really really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like I'll see like some of your 80s stuff, like because some of it's not stuff that I remember. right?
Hmm.
But then I'll see some stuff and I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, I get that. Like it gets you in the feels of certain things, right?
Without a
Of
doubt.
pop
And that's the
culture. And
point.
I mean, I'm looking like great. So I'm next to my man cave, really. And like I have a Back to the Future poster, a Raiders of the Lost Ark poster,
Hmm.
and a Shawshank and Jurassic Park. So
Oh man.
it's like an amalgamation of both decades. But yeah, and I have a Star Wars too, but that's 70s. Um,
That's what I'm looking forward to most is moving to Florida because Allie's gonna get her own office. I'm gonna get my man cave.
yeah.
My office slash man cave, and like it's gonna be so decked out,
Hmm.
like so nostalgic, and I can't wait to do it. And I can't wait to do it the way I wanted to because I
Yeah.
haven't been able to do that yet. And I'm like up to here with wanting to decorate something to where I want it to be. So I'm so looking forward to that.
Yeah. And of course, now that I have this stuff now, I need a bigger man cave.
Of course.
That's how it's always going to go. All right. Well, it's cool because like I said, if you haven't checked them out, check out Ryan's 80s and 90s pages. What are your handles for those?
So the first one's at 80 cinemas. The second one used to be 90 cinemas, but I changed it because I got a lot of requests from people that are like, hey, how come there's no Step Brothers? How come there's no, there's no like Jurassic World? There's no, and I'm like, Jurassic World's kind of new.
Hmm.
So what I decided to do was take 90 cinemas and change it to 90s to the future. I hit up
Okay.
like my cousin, I hit up my friend. I was like, hey, give me like a good handle name to do 90s to like early 2000s. And they were like, I don't know. One of them was like, oh, baby boomer. And I'm like, what? Like, no. So then I literally was flipping through channels and I saw Back to the Future. And I was like, 90s to the future. That works. That really does work. And I liked it. And I designed the logo really quick with the font
Yeah.
and everything. And so now it's 90s to the future. So
Yeah.
it's really simple.
I noticed that it changed and I wasn't sure the story of why it changed, but that's
Yeah.
cool.
So that's why I changed because I was like, you know what? If I could now I can cover everything because on my 80s page I do a little bit of 70s.
Hmm.
I do mainly 80s and then I have 90s to the future. So now I could do 90s to the early 2000s. Preferably I stop at like 2010.
Okay. Cool.
Because there's some cool things that are like we're around like Step Brothers, Waiting, all those other good movies that were around. I can now cover as well. So it's cool.
Nice. All right. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I have a segment that I call Brett's Corner where I ask 5 questions, same 5 questions to everybody,
Mhm.
mostly. Maybe not to Gormy. He was early. But here we go. So question number 1 is what movie, TV show, or event are you most excited for in the coming year?
I have 3.
Okay.
One is here,
Cobra
Cobra
Kai,
Kai.
yeah. I watched
Okay.
season 1. I haven't gotten any further.
Oh, dude, you're missing out.
Yeah, I
Season
gotta
4 is
catch up.
coming on, bro. And season 4, are you a Karate Kid fan?
Like I was never that big into it, but I mean I like the first movie, but after that it was okay.
Okay. Do you remember the second and third?
Yeah.
All right. I suggest if you watch season 1,
Hmm.
I suggest you watch I suggest you watch Karate Kid 2 and Karate Kid 3. Karate Kid 3 I know was a little bit rough, to sit through because it's like, all right, like, but it's important that you do. Just if you don't want to watch it, I would say brush up on it. That's all.
Okay.
Try to like refresh your memory on it.
For like I'm guessing references and such.
Yeah, because the series it dives back, so
Okay.
you'll see what I mean by that.
All right.
Second thing would be Stranger Things.
Mhm.
Love Stranger Things. And it's 80s, right?
Yeah.
Goes back to the 80s, and there's a lot of 80s references in that show, and I love that show. Third would be The Many Saints of Newark,
Yeah.
which is the prequel to The Sopranos movie. So
Yeah, I am.
I'm so excited for that.
So I never watched The Sopranos before. I tried to watch it a couple years ago, and I
We
could
got
never
to
get
end this
into it.
call. We got to end this
Well,
call.
hang on. A couple of months ago, like about 2 months ago, I started watching it, and I'm still watching it. Like I'm in season 5 right now.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm getting through it because I want to get there before I see The Many Saints of Newark in September.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'm there. I got it, and that's gonna be an HBO Max, so it's even better.
Yes. The Many Saints of Newark. I'm sorry. The Sopranos to me was, to this day, the best TV show ever created. I mean I like a lot of other TV shows too, and I love Cobra Kai, but Sopranos was just, it hits home, man. It
Yeah.
definitely hits home between my uncles and my aunts and my mom, and
Hmm.
it just hits home completely. Especially when at the table and they're eating and Tony's eating, and
Yeah.
The grandfather, the uncle says something, Uncle Junior says something, and it's like they start like yelling at each other. Bro, it takes me back to when I'm like 9 years old. Oh man.
But is it better than Breaking Bad or The Wire? That's the question.
So I'm not, I like The Wire. It's okay. Breaking Bad, I lost interest in. I couldn't sit through it.
Oh,
And I
really?
know a lot of
Okay.
people are like, what? I'm like, it's just not for me. And when they say, oh, Walter White, and it's kind of hard between Walter White and Tony Soprano. What? Like, to me, it's just like, yeah, no. They're like,
Mm.
oh, you got to watch it to the end. You got to see how his character develops. I'm like, I lost interest with Tony within the first 2 to 3 like episodes. I was like zoned in,
Yeah.
like, wow. So yeah, no, to me, it's not the same feeling, but that's just my opinion. I mean, everyone loves Walter White, and that's cool. I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, so those 2 things: Cobra Kai, Stranger Things, and the mini Saints of Newark.
Cool.
I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
All right. Number two, what are two non-health related goals you have for the next year?
Uh, I want to go to Epcot.
Awesome.
I've never been to Epcot. As I'm getting older, I'm not a rides person.
Hmm.
And I feel like Disney's kind of sort of like, not that it passed. I mean, I would like to get to walk through it. Rides are like, I get nauseous now, like playing virtual reality. So it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know how well I'm gonna handle a roller coaster. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I would just rather not. If my cousin's been to Epcot a few times, he's like, dude, it's for adults. He's like, you'll love it there. And I'm like, okay. So I want to go to Epcot, and I also want to explore more of Florida. I love Florida. I really do. Even though everyone's like, you're going to be sweating your ass off down in July. I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I'll deal with it. I just like it down there so much. The only thing I'm not looking forward to is the alligators. But
It's just what Ali said too.
yeah, I'm not, because honestly, I will literally shit myself if I see one. I'm not kidding.
Yeah. Well,
You'll see me. I will run for the first time in like 30 years in the opposite direction, without a doubt. So yeah, no, but Epcot and exploring Florida, because me and Ali have such a good time when it's just me and her, and
mhm.
like we just enjoy each other's company, and we just like to explore and do those things. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Number three. If someone
Mhm.
came to you saying they were lacking motivation to stay consistent, what three pieces of advice would you give them?
I wrote this down, so I'm going to read it so that way I don't lose track of what I said. Three pieces of advice I would say is, whatever you do to better yourself, stay consistent. Okay. Use social media to connect with the community. If you do this, like I said, even though I said that there's a lot of people that sometimes just show the glitz and glamour of their weight loss, you need to find the accounts that show everything,
Hmm.
that show what they're going through, because you will be able to relate to all that. Whether you're having a good day or a bad day, it doesn't matter. You need to find the people that show the ins and outs, the ups and the downs, as to why they do what they do. The real ones, I should say.
Hmm.
Um, but that's to stay motivated. And the last but not least would be true, be accountable. Because if you're not accountable, especially with yourself, you're gonna stay stuck,
Yeah.
and that's just the way it is.
Oh, for sure. I like those. All right. Question number four. What have you discovered about yourself during your journey that surprised you the most?
That I need to know when to emotionally eat. Like I said before, it would be overlooked. I would just have a bad day or something would happen, and I would just immediately like go eat something just to eat something, and not realizing that I'm filling a void. It's
Hmm.
exactly what I'm doing. So I would say that's been the biggest help for me during this journey,
All right.
completely, like between everything.
Yeah, that's very, very good point. All right. Question five is everybody's favorite. If in 150 years science fails to save us and all that is left is a book about your life, what would the title be and what would the blurb tell us about Ryan?
Hmm. Remember when I said earlier that you were going to laugh with the whole Rocky thing, right?
Hmm.
I think my book would be called Keep Punching. Um, the blurb would be a man who continues to learn how winning is done.
I like the Rocky Balboa reference with the blurb. All right, man. Hey, thanks for coming on today.
Thank
Where
you,
can
bro. Thank you
people?
for having me.
I know we mentioned your 80s and 90s pages, but where can people reach you other than those if they want to reach out to you on Instagram or on the internet at all?
I'm on Twitter as well. I have to change the Twitter handle for the 90s one, um, but I'm on Twitter at 80 Cinemas. My main platform is Instagram. That's where like my 80s pages are known for, and my 90s as well. Um, but I'm on Facebook. You know, my name Ryan Aviles is there. If anybody wants to ever reach out, I'm there. I have an 80 Cinemas page on Facebook as well. I'm all over the place, man. Yeah, I mean, so you got working on Ryan, right? Working underscore on underscore Ryan. Then you have 80 cinemas, 90s to the future on Instagram. You have the same handles on Twitter, actually. And yeah, then you have my actual Facebook and then the stuff on Facebook pages as well.
Awesome. So plenty of social media to find you on.
Yes.
All right. So I want to thank everybody for listening all the way to the end. You made it. Congratulations.
Thank you,
Make
everybody.
make sure you check out the show notes for links to all of. I'll have all of Ryan's pages linked there. Be sure to check out my website, becomingbrett.com. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at becomingbrett, and the show at becoming more pod on Instagram. Until next time, hey, give us a 5-star review if you like this show, and if you didn't, give us a review and tell us why. I always take constructive criticism seriously. And come back next week to learn how we can all become more.